What's good? What's good? I'm gonna start off by saying shalom and giving all praises to the Most High, and we do so in His only begotten Son, the Mashiach Yahweh Shai. I know y'all see the title. We're keeping on the same thing, but breaking down this book of Revelation. This is part 9 out of this 11-part series. Called the Big Payback. Like just getting into like the destruction of Babylon the Great, aka America, and their counterparts. So we're gonna break it down to the spirit and get some understanding of this thing, and understanding that this book of Revelation is not so spooky. How some of us been told growing up. So yeah, we're gonna understand it through the spirit, and it's and get to understand that this is more practical than what how we've been told. So we're gonna start off with chapter 17 in Revelation, verse 1. But before we get that, let me get Jeremiah 18 and 6, right? Ooh, dang, go back. So so then it says we'll start off with Jeremiah 18 and 8. If that nation against whom I have pronounced and turned from their evil, I will repent of the evil that I thought to do unto them. So the Most High is saying, like, if these nations will repent from what they have been doing and what they have done, then He will change. He won't destroy them. But we know that this place called America, aka Babylon, is not going to change in what they've been doing. They're going to keep doing what they're doing, and they're not looking to change, right? Because business is going good for them. So, so it says, if that nation against who I have pronounced, if that nation against who I have pronounced turn from their evil, I will repent of the evil that I thought to do unto them. So meaning God will change, but and He won't destroy that nation. But like I said, these people is not thinking about none of that. They continue on doing what they're doing. So let's get Revelation 17 and 1. And it says, there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, talk with me, saying unto me, come hither, I will show thee the judgment of the great whore that sit upon many waters. So that great whore is America. When they talk about like they seen a woman sitting on a beast riding a beast, that's America, right? And it says to whom the kings of the earth were committed fornication. And that's what happened. A lot of these nations, they deal with America when in their commerce, throughout various different ways. They use America for the military, protection and all that stuff, and other different ways that they fornicate with America, meaning how they, is wrapped up and involved in the American system. And it says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk of the wine of her fornication. Meaning, a lot of them adopted the American philosophies. That's why you got people in China wearing 3-piece suits now. When they used to wear their traditional garments on how they, usually dress over there on the East. But now they looking like European businessmen now, because they had drunken the wine, meaning the philosophies of America. And a lot of these other countries that we see around, adopting America's country, taking on America's influence, such as, like I said, Japan, a lot of countries that we can think of, right? And so it says, which whom these kings of the earth had committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth had made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Meaning, like I said, they fallen into the trap of the ways of America and thinking that America's democracy and their way of life is the way to go. You know, that's why you got a lot of these, foreign countries, you know, turning into democracy, what they say, democratizing, or whatever how you say it, you know. So it's a lot of that going on. So let's get a Habakkuk, I'm sorry, Habakkuk 2 and 4. Oh yeah. So and it reads, "Behold, his soul which is behold his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him." So it's talking about these so-called Europeans, these so-called Americans, these so-called people that run this Babylon the Great. It says, "Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him," meaning you can't reform this man. So when you hear me talking about how he's unreformable, you cannot change his manner and think that, he just need to see that we're not so bad of a people that maybe he'll love us better, maybe he'll treat us better. No, because the Bible says, read it again. It says, "Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him," meaning his God didn't create him to be a upright type of person. That's why they commit so much hell and do all the atrocities that they do around the world. They commit so much violence because it's not in them to do good. Because God didn't create them to be good. He created them to do exactly what they've been doing. So it sounds bogus only because we've been looking at it through a Christianity lens. But understanding this is the real Bible. This is what God says. And because God created everything, He created everything for a purpose. And their purpose is to be the devil on the earth, like how they have been. And it says, "Behold, his soul, which is behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith." So, and we are the just, the Israelites, and we're going to live by faith. While they go around living by the sword and the gun and going around trying to conquer and take everything, right? So, moving on, it says, back to Revelation. It says, "And he carried me away in the spirit unto the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast." So, that woman is talking about America, right? Um, filled full of names of blasphemy and having 7 heads and 10 horns. So now this is talking about America being the head and leading what we call NATO and the EU, because that would be the 10 horns. Uh, you know, in the 7 heads of the 10 horns, right? That would be these NATO countries in the EU, right? And a woman, uh, and a woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet colors because purple is color of royalty. So America is looked at like I said, America basically run NATO and the EU, you know, and so they're like the top hegemony of their little federation that they got going on amongst themselves. And it says the woman was arrayed in purple and in scarlet colors and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations. So it's talking about her philosophies, her way of life, and how they go and push it on other people. That's what that cup of abomination is, like we read in a few verses earlier about how all these other nations had drunk from that cup, drunk that wine and start, like I said, you got the Chinese man dressing like Americans now, and they way over on the east. They used to have their own little attire that they wear. That's just one example. And even certain countries in Africa, different countries that is following the philosophies of America. And it says, the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornications. So, like I said, her lies, her doctrine, her way of life, this, the whole culture of America, right? Then it says, upon her forehead was the name of Mystery Babylon, the great mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Because that's what America is. Because they is pushing their agenda and, you know, and have the whole world in turmoil right now because of their policies and stuff. Their GOP standings and how they do certain things, how they operate. So they got the world jacked up right now. And it says, and I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints. And how was they drunk with the blood of the saints? The saints are the Israelites, the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American. They drunk with the blood of the saints because they killed so many of us. Our blood been spilled on this land from the Native Americans all the way to us. You know, um, and then and through the conquest, slavery, the Atlantic slave trade, all that stuff, and even to this day, how they still murder us in the streets with impunity through their police systems, right? And it says, and I saw a woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Yahushua, who the world called Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. So John is seeing this vision, and he's just looking like, like, wow, this nation is really get down. They like very vicious. It's just amazed to see how they operate when John was seeing this vision. So and the angel said to me, therefore, did thou marvel? Therefore, did thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carry her, which is NATO, because NATO is propped up America to be their leader, and and they follow what America says do. Uh, which carry her, which have the 7 heads and the 10 horns, right? So let's jump to Ezekiel real quick. You get some more on this 10 horn stuff. So we can go to Ezekiel, let's see, 12 and 28, right? So it says, therefore say unto them, thus saith the Lord, there shall none of my words be prolonged anymore, but the words which I have spoken shall be done. Shall be done, said the Yahweh, said the Yahweh power. So, like I said, so all these prophecies that were spoken before is starting to come to pass now. That's why it's important to understand what this Bible is saying and get rid of that old Christianity doctrine that we have been taught and come back to the real and the truth of the Bible. Because what most people will understand is when you actually read this book, you don't have a problem with the Bible. You actually have a problem with the system that that end up teaching us the Bible, because the Bible says that exactly opposite of what you've been taught in church. I always say, if you write down a list of everything that you learned in church, then read the Bible and make a list, the list will be totally opposite of each other. It will not correspond with the Bible, because the Bible is true, but in Christianity is a lie. And we got to understand that, because Christianity is white supremacy. Then it says, and the beast that shall that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, which is Europe, and go uh, unto the perdition, meaning destruction. They're gonna be destroyed pretty soon, and they shall dwell on the earth, and they shall dwell on the earth, shall wonder whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast, and is wait, hold on, and is not, and yet it is. So because it's talking about basically, because America is a extension of the Roman Empire. So the first Roman Empire was destroyed. So then it got revised through America and their EU and their NATO, you know, federation that they got going on. So that's why it means like that it was and is not, but yet to come. So because they're seeing this in the, because now that we in 2022, we can see that America is the extension of the Roman Empire. But during the time that John was writing this was a vision that he was seeing that was going to play out in the future. So now that we living in the times, we can see how it all played out. That America ended up being that extension of the revised empire. That's why it says the beast that was wounded, but now is healed. So they healed themselves and called themselves America now, and now they backed by the power of NATO in the EU. And so it says and there was a and there was I'm sorry, and there is in the mind which has wisdom, seven heads are seven mountains. And we understand, if you've been following along, that mountains are nations, countries, you know, people. So it says, uh, and there is, and I'm sorry, and here is the mind of which have wisdom, meaning if you can understand, what they're trying to say to you, the seven heads are seven mountains, which uh, on which the woman sitteth. So, like I said, so she's the head of these different nations, you know, uh, France, Germany, Spain, Portugal, England, Britain, all those different Western European countries that that America deals with. Those would be the seven heads. And the 10 horns is like the little sub countries that's underneath them that also got power too. That that can got a little pull, through the system of NATO and the EU, right? So it says uh on which the woman sitteth, and there are seven kings, five are fallen, and one is, and the other is not yet to come. Talking about America, that will be that kingdom to come, and and it's here, So we read actually, reading, we actually living in the aftermath of it, and yet to come, and when he come, he must continue for a short space. So he's saying that yeah, America's going to be running things, but he's only going to be running things for a short period of time, and so. And then you also know that what you say, America is like the youngest country, one of the youngest countries, right? I'm pretty sure some other countries that was formed after America since then, but for a long time, America was looked at as the youngest nation, right? So, and it says he should continue for a short period of time, meaning, once America get established, their power is gonna, it's not gonna be as long and great as like some of these other kingdoms that ruled before them. You know, they're gonna have a few hundred year run, but it's not gonna be as long as the Egyptian kingdom that ruled, the Babylonian kingdoms that ruled, the Assyrians and stuff like that, and etc. So it's gonna be a little shortened. And and it says, and when he come, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he, the eighth is the seventh, meaning like America and the Rome is the same people, because the seventh was Rome, and then they got taken down. Then they you know revised themselves and came back as the American Empire. So that's why it says the seven. Where are we at? Boom, boom, boom. And the beast that was and the beast that was and is not, even he, the eighth, and is of the seventh, and go into prediction, meaning they're going to be destroyed. Because the first Roman Empire was destroyed, and this one, i.e., America, Babylon, is going to be destroyed also. And the tenth and the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings. So like I said, it's these different nations that sit that rise with NATO and the EU. That's not probably like the top countries like America, France, Germany, England, Spain and all them niggas like that. But they're they ride with them though, so they underneath them though. So they 10 kings, and and it says and the 10 horns which thou sawest are the 10 kings which have received no kingdom yet, meaning they're not as powerful as America and the other nations that run with them, but they in it with them though. They got America can back them up. Just like Japan uses America military, for their military because and so that's just one example, right? So it says in the 10 horns which thou hast saws are 10 kings which have received no kingdom yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So what they're telling you is that yeah, they not globally running things, but since they down with America and NATO, they got power too though. That's why like you know you got the Ukraine trying to join in with NATO so they can you know take in some of the benefits of being a part of NATO. You know, and so you got these different countries that's a part of the NATO and the EU. So they benefit for being in that alliance, but they're not running the show like America and Germany and France and stuff like that. You know, so then it says, and these have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. And the beast is the NATO in Europe, in the European Union. So that's the beast. And so they gave their power, meaning their military might. That's why, they have a big military when they come together. So just get Obadiah real quick, 1 and 7. And it reads, all the men all the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border, and the men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee. So it's telling you that a lot of these nations that's down with America, they gonna end up turning on America. When this third World War III kick off, a lot of these nations gonna end up turning on them, right? So, um, so yeah, they got the NATO and European Union, coming together. But then you're gonna have countries that's gonna start splintering off, and they're gonna probably team up with Russia. Like we see how like France is not really happy with America. We see like these few other countries that's in their in their mix is not really cool with what's been going on with the whole Russia, Ukraine, and America thing, right? You know, so it says all the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border, meaning they gonna come at their door, meaning you know they gonna show up to where America live, deep, i.e. through they missiles, and it says uh brought even to the border, and the men that were at peace with thee, because they supposed to be cool. It said they was at peace with them. They supposed to be in that federation, the NATO, the EU. They all supposed to be on one accord, but they not. They starting to break up. And it says that was at peace with thee, have deceived thee and prevail against thee. They that eat thy bread and lay a wound underneath thee, meaning they take your money, they take your wealth, but they waiting to snake you in the end, you know. So yeah, they're like, yeah, I can, you know, take your money, like Pakistan, was taking America's money, taking millions and millions of dollars from America, but they was hiding Bin Laden somewhere, you know, on a military base, basically, and acting like they don't know where Bin Laden is. So yeah, they taking their money. So it says, and they that eat thy bread, meaning they taking their money, their wealth, their resources that America provide to these other countries for dealing with them and being down with them, had laid a wound underneath thee. there is no understanding in him. Meaning, they ain't try. Once they mind turn to, you know what? Forget America. We riding with Russia, China, Iran. You know, this is who we down with. So it's not no amount of money or any type of deals that America can try to make with these people, because they're gonna be fed up with America at that point. They're not gonna be ready to be down with America no more, because they're gonna look at America like, man, you got us in this trouble. Now Russia gonna blow us up, and we ain't trying to get blown up. You know what I'm saying? So we either gonna get down or lay down. Meaning they gonna get down with Russia, or they gonna lay down, because Russia got them nukes and they ain't playing, and they will use them. And not that they will, they are. So verse 14. And these shall make war with the Lamb, talking about Yahushua, who the world called Jesus. And these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is Yahweh, for he is the Lord of lords, kings of kings, and they are with him are called and chosen and faithful. Talking about us Israelites, the ones that he's gonna have and use as his army. And it says, let's get Isaiah real quick. Isaiah 66 and 24. So it says, and they shall go forth and look upon the carcass of the men that have transgressed against me. Because like I said, it just tells you that they're going to want to make war with the Lamb, which is Jehoshaphat, which is Jesus. It says, and they shall go forth looking at the carcass of the men that have transgressed against me, for their worm shall not die, neither shall the fire be quenched. Meaning, they're gonna have they're gonna be their body's gonna be laying everywhere, insects and stuff gonna be eating on them. And what they mean by the worms is not gonna die, meaning is there's gonna be so much dead bodies that it's gonna be insects that's feasting away on them. And the fire shall not be quenched, and they shall be a whoring of all flesh. Meaning, people are gonna be looking at these people like, you dumb son of a, you know what I'm talking about. Because they were like, how you gonna fight against Jesus? And that's the pride of these people. They actually think they military. That's why they make all these movies where they going killing aliens and stuff like that. Like, they got the technology to do so. You know, so they got this pride in them that where they think they can actually win. You know, so it says, let's go to Matthew, real quick. 5 and 13, or 5 and 17. It says, and think not. So this is Yahushua talking, who the world called Jesus. Think not that I come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. So meaning, all the things that the prophets wrote about in this book that we're reading about has to happen. All right, and that's because it's part of prophecy. Even though the end result is us ruling the world forever and ever, and and all the other nations being subjugated to us, then that's going to bring peace on the earth, real peace on the earth. But all these other things have to happen first. So that's why I said, think not I come to destroy the prophets, or anything that they said before I came. Because, even Jesus, when he was on earth, he had to play out his part, and, to according to the prophecy, And so all these things have to come to pass, um, and that's what, we're going to start seeing happening. And has been happening. And back to Revelation. It says, and he that sit and he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are people and multitudes of nations and tongues. Right. So once again, it's talking about these different nations that's following the philosophies of America. And so let's get a so that's further proven that when they talk about nations, I mean mountains, they talk about nations and people, as we can see, because Revelation is breaking it down for you too. So telling you that it's nations, when they talk about mountains. So let's get a Jeremiah 31:31. So it says, "Behold, the days cometh, said the Yahweh, I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah." So, everybody talking about the new covenant and all that stuff, right? And it's telling you clearly that the new covenant is for the Israelites. We're going to get that, that blessing, that covering, and that new covenant because we're destined to be the rulers of the planets. Like how it originally supposed to be set up, before we fell from grace and allowed these other nations to, rule over us. So, and like I said, and that's what's gonna happen. Then it says, then it says, all right, now let's get to 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. So now these 10 countries, these 10 rulers, they're gonna hate the whore, and the whore is America. Like we was talking about earlier, that these nations gonna turn against America, and they're gonna team up with Russia and Iran and China, eventually. And it says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these and the beast is NATO, and these shall hate the whore and shall make her desolate." So they're gonna destroy America along with Russia, China, Korea, Iran, you know, and all these other countries that's gonna eventually end up fighting against America. And they shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. And how they gonna burn her with fire? With thermonuclear fire, with the missiles that they got. So let's get Ezekiel 1:41 real quick. Ezekiel, not 1:41. I'm talking about. Hold on, 1 second. Hold on, one second. One second. Bear with me. Hold on, hold on. Hold on, we're gonna come back to that one. Let's jump to Matthew real quick. Go to Matthew. Matthew 12:25. And it says, and Jesus knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation. So you got NATO and all these different, countries that's, running with each other. And then they're going to be divided, because they're going to, like I said, they're not even seeing eye to eye right now. Because a lot of the countries don't like how America is handling the whole Russia-Ukraine situation because it's jeopardizing them. So it says, and Jesus knew their thoughts, and he said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. So that's what's going to happen. That's how America is going to be taken down because their allies that they're cool with, they ain't going to be so cool with them no more. And then they're going to want to team up with Russia. And it says, for God has put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree to give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of Yahweh shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is the great city which reign over the kings of the earth. And that's America, that great city. Because they're the ones that got a military base in almost every damn country you can think of. Like countries you won't even think about, like just remote countries. like far off Pacific islands and just places you won't even think of. They got military bases controlling things. So chapter 18. So it says, after these I saw another angel come down from heaven, having a great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. Right. So let's see what this is. Let's get Ezekiel 28 and 15. And it says, thou was perfect in thy ways from the day that thou was created, uh, until iniquity was found in it. Right. So you got these countries that's hold on, read it again. And so yeah, so you got these countries that's supposed to be teaming up with America, but then and they doing their job being a good what they call buffer, but then then they're gonna just slowly just start pulling away from America, right? That's what it mean by to iniquity was found and in your ways. And it says, and he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen. Uh, it is fallen, and it has become a habitation of devils, and in the hold of every foul and unclean, every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. So that's what's going to happen in that day, and that's what it is, basically. Babylon is falling. That's why it's so much, wickedness going on in the society, because it's a place where all unclean spirits, dwell at. Let's get Jeremiah, Jeremiah 50, right? What, 39? So Jeremiah 50 and 39 says, therefore the wild beasts of the desert, with the wild beasts of the islands shall dwell there, and the owls shall dwell therein, and it shall be no more inhabited forever. Talking about America. So when America is destroyed that day, it's not going to be like only type of animals that's going to be able to be in this land, because you got to understand it's going to be like radiation everywhere. You know what I'm saying? And people is not going to be able to survive here. We saw that movie, Book of Eli, how the sky was darkened, and everybody walked around with shades on, or some people was blind, and it was just real cloudy and misty. So there's only a certain type of animals that's going to be able to adapt and live in that environment in that day. So it's telling you that basically like desert animals is going to be the only type of animals that can survive, in that climate when it happens. So therefore the wild beasts of the desert and wild beasts of the islands shall dwell there, and the owls shall dwell therein, and it shall be no more inhabitant forever, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Meaning people is not gonna be able to live there. Because we get radiation poisoning. And so and it's not gonna be uh, you know, habitable for us to stay here. Once all those, bombs and everything blow up, right? So then it says, for the nation has drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth has committed her fornication, and the kings of the earth has committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. So yeah, that's how a lot of these countries got rich, especially off the back of of us, because American currency came from them having us in slavery. That's where their currency came from. That's how insurance companies got started here in America. That's how a lot of these banking companies got started here in America. Through us, because we were the currency for a long period of time. The slaves, the slave markets. So then all these nations that dealt with America through over time, like I said, they got a hand in that too. You know, and so it says, for the nation have drunk of the wine and wrath of her fornication. Meaning a lot of these nations gonna have to suffer the same as America when it all be said and done. They're gonna have to be destroyed along with America because they want to, still tag along to get along. And it says, "For the nation have drunk the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth had committed fornication with her, and the merchants, meaning people that does business with America, you know, um, of the earth are waxed rich because they got rich, especially Great Britain and all that stuff. They got rich off of our slavery. The Vatican, all these different nations got rich, while we was in slavery. And then, knowing that the currency of America came off of our backs, this whole stock market and everything got created because of us, and all these other nations that's, got their hand in it. So they all playing a part of this, of this whole thing. So they're gonna have to be destroyed for their participation. And it says, got rich through the abundance of her delicacy. And I heard another voice of heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people." Who he say? My people. So not everybody. He's talking about my people. This people is the Israelites, the Black, Hispanic, and Native American. It says, I heard a voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and receive not her plague." So, and how do we come out of her? By not celebrating Christmas, by not celebrating their holidays that they got coming up. We have our own holidays in this Bible that we should be following. That's why you see this menorah on my desk. Because Hanukkah is coming up soon. You know, you want to give gifts? Okay, we got Hanukkah. You can give gifts. If you like, for 7 days. How about that? We got another holiday in February called the uh, the Feast of Purim, where you can get. That's the day where people give gifts. Also, I mean, me personally, I usually do my gift giving on a Purim. So because sometimes Hanukkah run too close to Christmas, and I don't want people to get it confused that I'm celebrating Christmas. So I usually do mine in February. So we got two holidays. One lasts for a whole week that you can give gifts and party and kick it and chill. You know, then we got one in February, February 15th, I believe, that we do the same thing. All right. So we got our holidays that we should be celebrating. So come out of her, meaning come stop following her philosophies, her way of life. Come back to our culture, our true heritage. You know, and get away from this whole American society, how they run things. It's the reason why you have a Chinatown, because they are together, and the Chinese are the least people to vote. They don't vote, basically. They don't even vote. You know what I'm saying? But yet they come together, they get stuff done. They have a Chinatown. Because they're still keeping up with their, you know, somewhat of their way of life. I know some of them are Americanized, like we was going over earlier. And then you have what the Greek town, uh, Little Italy, all these different communities that these people have, because they have that, uh, that that togetherness among themselves, and they keep their customs and their beliefs, so they're able to create their own little communities. So that's what we need to be a part of, you know, get away from this thing spiritually, you know, um, and stop following the ways of America and doing the things that America like to do. Because that's only going to get us killed in the long run. Because to be frank with you, when God come back, God is hunting with a shotgun. God is not hunting with a sniper rifle. A sniper rifle is a little more precise, right? But a shotgun shoot out pellets that spread out. So when God come and do his drive-by, he's doing a drive-by with a shotgun. Meaning, if you out there, and he aiming for this person, but you out there, you going to get hit too, because you shouldn't have been out there. Meaning, you following the ways of America, their customs, and you still trying to be a part of this thing. That's how God get down. You know what I'm saying? And this is the God of the Bible, not the God of Christianity. This guy gets down. All right? And that's how he wrote. So it says, and I heard a great voice, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not any of her plagues." Right. So let's get Jeremiah real quick again. See what this talking about. Jeremiah 51 and 6. 51 and 6. It says, "Flee out of the midst of Babylon." So it's telling us in Jeremiah, flee out in the midst of Babylon. Talking about spiritually. It says, flee out in the midst of Babylon and deliver every man his soul, be not cut off in her iniquity, for this for this is the time of the Yahweh's vengeance. He will render unto her recompense. So that's what I'm saying. When God come back, this picture of God being that guy, like when stuff go down, he be like, all right, I'll be back. Then he leave and come back and shoot up the whole block. Then whoever out there, they get hit. So it says, uh, flee out of the midst of Babylon, deliver every man his soul, be not cut off in her iniquity, meaning, you know, America's doing what they doing, and you want to be out there like, all right, okay, I'm gonna celebrate Thanksgiving, I'm gonna do all these, different holidays that America is got us stuck into, and so when God come back and render His vengeance on this place, and you looking like an op to him because you still following the customs of America, calling yourself American, not understanding that you're an Israelite, a true child of God. You following the customs of America. You looking like an op to him, so he gonna do you in like he gonna do the rest of them, and he ain't gonna have no sorries about it. That's not what That's not what the church is telling you. Church is telling you that God coming to save everybody. Because if you're a Christian, if you know the tenets of Christianity, you're supposed to love everybody. But that's not what this Bible is about. You know, God is a God of vengeance, and He's come to wreak vengeance for what these people had done to His people. But if you want to be caught up in the midst of that, then you're gonna get hit with it. Cause like I said, he hunting with a shotgun, not a sniper rifle. So it says, let's get a 63, Isaiah 63. Get a few of these precepts. It says, "Who is that this Isaiah 63 and 1? Who is that cometh from Edom?" Talking about these so-called Europeans. Die, die with garments of Basra. Uh, is that is glorious in his apparel, traveling in greatness in his strength. That I speak in righteousness and mighty to save. Therefore art thou red in thy apparel and thy garments, right? Talking about Yahweh Jesus, talking about basically saying that when he first saw Jesus, he was decked out, all white garment, looking cold, because you know how we like to dress, you know. He said, but now when you see him, his clothes is red now, like he been, like it says, therefore thou art red in thy apparel, uh, and thy garments is like him that treadeth the wine fat, meaning it look like you've been stumping on grapes all day, right? And then Yahweh says, I had trodden the winepress alone, meaning, you know, Jesus, when he come back, he going to destroy these nations by himself, you know, for the evil that they did to us. And then, and he's going to be doing so much killing that his clothing is going to be stained with their blood. He's going to come here with an all-white garment on. You know how we like to have our all-white parties and stuff. You know how we like to get sharp for that. So he coming like he dressed for an all-white party, but he going to leave like he just been out here claiming Suwu blood. That's what's gonna happen. So, and that's what the Jesus of the Bible. Okay, he's coming back for vengeance, and he's gonna destroy these people that destroyed us. And it says, "I have trodden the winepress alone, and the people there was none with me, meaning all these nations saw the atrocities that America has done to us, and not none of them came over here to help and try to say, "Oh, it's horrible what they doing to those people over there. Let's do something. Let's give some type of humanitarian aid to the so-called Black Hispanic people over there. Just do something to help." No, they didn't do none of that. They actually participated with them, you know, and they allowed this stuff to happen, right? So that's how they that's how they came down with it, right? And I was getting a call real quick, but yeah, right. So then I'm about this up real quick. So it says, reward her even as she has rewarded you, and double unto her according to her works, and according to her works, in the cup which she has filled with her double, right? So that's what's gonna happen. So God said, reward this place double to what they had done to us for the last 500 years or so. Said they're gonna have to face double that, double everything that you can imagine the horribleness that happened to us. They're gonna go through it twice as much. All right, we go through single parent homes, baby mama drama, all that different stuff, right? But they're gonna have to face that twice as much. You know, being discriminated against, all that stuff. They're gonna have to go against. They're gonna have to face that twice as much. That's what type. That's called justice, right? So then it says, reward her as she has rewarded you, and double unto her according to her works, in the cup which she has filled filled to her double. So it's saying that that cup of wrath that she gotta drink that double that she gotta because we have to drink the cup of wrath of God. That's why we went through what we went through. But he said the same wrath that we drunk, they're gonna have to drink it, but a double portion of that. All right, it's called justice, and it says, um, how is she have glorified herself and lived deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her, for she said in her heart, I sit as a queen. That's how America feels. America feels like they untouchable. It says, I sit as a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. That's why America's confident. They think they can go into battle and just beat any country and mop them up real good. If that's the case, they wouldn't be sending billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine because they scared that they're gonna have to fight Russia one day. So they hoping that Ukraine weakens Russia enough so when they do end up fighting Russia, Russia will be somewhat depleted and they can probably get a victory that way. But it ain't gonna happen like that because Russia, the same way America got their EU and their NATO, Russia got the BRIC, and that's Brazil, Russia, Iran, and China, and then all the little underlings that goes along with them, like Korea and you know India and all these different countries that that fucks with them, right? So then let's go. So then it says um, let's go to Amos real quick. Amos, yeah, Amos 9 and 11. It says, "In that day I will rise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen, and close up the breaches thereof. I will raise up his ruins, and as it I will build it as it in the old days." Meaning he's going to restore Israel in that day, right? And so that's what's going to happen. He's going to restore Israel in that day. As he's restoring us, they're going to be drinking double portion of what we have to go through. As he's building us back up, they're going to be going through double of where we have to go through, right? Let's get Ezekiel real quick. Ezekiel 37 and 22. And it says, I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king unto them, Yahushua, who is our king. And they shall be no more two nations, meaning we're not going to be separated as a people anymore. Neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms anymore at all. And neither shall they defile themselves anymore with idols, nor shall their nor detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions, but I will save them out of their dwelling places. So wherever we're at here in America, we're scattered in Europe, Asia, Africa, we're everywhere. So he said he's going to save us out of our dwelling places, right? And wherein they have sinned, and I will cleanse them, so they shall be my people. That my people is possessive, and his people is the Israelites. We know that. Shall be my people, and I will be their God. So that's what's going to happen in that day, as he's cleansing us and building us back up to be back a strong nation and putting us back on top where we're supposed to be, the kings and queens and prince and princesses of this world. These other nations going to have to go through what we went through, but double. We're going to be doing the persecution. You know, it's called justice, right? So then, it says, "How much has she glorified herself and lived deliciously? So much torment and sorrow give her, for she said in her heart that I sit as a queen and no widow, and shall see no sorrow." So America think that they can't be touched. They can't lose. They untouchable, right? Let's get a second Ezra real quick. Try to wrap this up real quick. Let's get second Ezra real quick. Let's get second Ezra 16 and 13. So it says, For strong is his right hand that bendeth the bow, his arrows that shooteth sharp. Talking about those missiles, right? Those intercontinental missiles that Russia and China got. It says, strong as his right hand that bendeth the bow, and his arrow that shooteth sharp, and shall not miss. Meaning they gonna hit their targets. When they decide to push that button on this place, it ain't gonna be no misfire. They gonna hit what they trying to hit. And it says, and it shall not miss when they begin to shoot into the ends of the world. So, like they say, these intercontinental missiles that they got, these hypersonic missiles that Russia got, when they start to send these mugs, these bad boys out, they will go where they need to go. So that's why we need to pray and hope and come back to our nationality and our culture, so we can be protected in that day. And that's what we looking for. It says, therefore her plague shall come in one day, back in Revelation. Therefore her plague shall come in one day, death, mourning, and famine, and she shall be utterly burnt with fire. For strong is the Lord who judges her. Right? So that's what's going to happen when God finally passes his judgment on this place. Says her all this calamity that we're reading about that's going to come to this place is going to happen quickly, very quickly. We can see the setup right now. The food prices and stuff fluctuating, gas prices fluctuating. One day it's high, one day it's low. We see in the beginning stages of the famine and stuff like that. It says, therefore her plague shall come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burnt with fire. Strong is the Lord who judges her. Right? It says, and the king of the earth who committed fornication lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament for her, and they shall see the smoke burning. So America gonna be burnt to a crisp to where far off countries and nations, and like how like you seen them pictures where they got like thousands and thousands of ships trying to come into America to dock, and it's like so blocked that they can't even get a lot of these ships in. So you're gonna have a lot of these commercial ships coming in, trying to come in and out of America during that day, and they're gonna see the smoke burning from wherever they at. You're gonna be able to see this with satellites from space, all that stuff. That's how much, you know, uh, fire and burning is gonna be going down. Let's get Zechariah real quick, 13:9. And it says, I will bring the third part through the fire, and I will refine them as silver is refined. Talking about the Israelites, because a third of us is going to make it out of this. Because it's only going to be a small percentage of us in Babylon that's actually going to want to try to do right and come up out of here. Majority of us, sadly to say, I know I'm speaking through it like I don't care, but I'm just trying to move, because I'm almost, at my limit. But sadly, a lot of us is going to die here. So it says a third of us, meaning 33% of us is actually going to really want to come back and do what we're supposed to do. But majority of us going to still want to live the life of America and the life that we've been living, and don't even try to, come back to what we should be doing. So it says, I will bring a third through the part of the fire, and I will refine them as silver is refined, and I will try them as gold is tried. And they shall call on my name, and I will hear them. And I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, that Yahweh is my power, meaning the Lord is my God. And so, like I said, but we're scattered all over the planet. Not just here in America. We're everywhere. So it's gonna, yeah, it might be only a third of us that make it out of America, but we're gonna be saved from all over the world, wherever we are at. You know, that's just a punishment that a lot of us gotta face here in America, because a lot of us is still wicked as hell here in America. So it says, get through this real quick. It says, in her lamentation, talking about how the country is going to be mourning for her, because a lot of countries going to be upset that America is destroyed. And it says, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, at last, the great city of Babylon, that mighty city, for 1 hour thy judgment come. So yeah, it's going to take 1 hour for America to be destroyed. When God passes his judgment, he's going to destroy this place in 1 hour. It ain't going to be no long, drawn-out battle or none of that. It's going to be 1 hour. This place is going to be obliterated. Let's get a 50. Let's get a Jeremiah 50 and 13. So Jeremiah 50 and 13 says, because the wrath of the Lord, because of the wrath of the Lord shall not be inhabited, but it shall be wholly desolate. Every one that goeth by Babylon shall be astonished and hiss at her plagues. Meaning, a lot of these countries are going to see what happened to America, and they be like, man, damn, that's a damn shame that happened to America. That's so messed up. They're going to be like, dang, see, we told America to slow it down. Like, they just kept on pushing on the gas. Like, dang, I don't know why America went out like that. They should have gave up when they had a chance. That's what that means. When you read it in there, Jeremiah, it says, let me read it again. Because of the wrath of the Yahweh, it shall not be inhabited. Meaning, because God is so angry with this place, he's going to destroy this place where nobody's going to be able to live there ever again. And it says, but it shall be wholly desolate, and every one that goes by Babylon shall be astonished and hiss at her, at all her plagues. And that's what's going to happen in that day. And it says, back to Revelation, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her. Meaning, it's going to be some nations that's going to be upset that America's destroyed. And it says, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. Because we're a consumer nation here in America. We consume a lot of goods. America does a lot of consuming. So a lot of these nations is made rich off of the spending power that the people here in America has. So when America is destroyed, all these nations are gonna be like, damn, how we gonna eat, man? Like, what's that 50 Cent little little skit or something, like a little thing that he got on that song? How we gonna eat, man? It's all fucked up now. It's all fucked up now. How we gonna eat, man? So that's what a lot of these countries gonna be saying in that day. It's all fucked up now. How we gonna eat? Because America's destroyed. And it says, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. So they're not gonna have nobody to purchase their goods anymore because America's gonna be destroyed. Um, let's get a few more precepts. Trying to rush through this, but trying to actually, still get, all the meat off the bone real quick. Let's go to Isaiah 45 and 15 real quick for them. So Isaiah 45 and 15 says, "Verily thou art a power that hidest thyself, O God of Israel, the Savior. He shall be ashamed and also confounded, and all of them shall go confusion, shall go to confusion together, that are markers of idols. But Israel shall be saved in the Lord with an everlasting salvation. And ye shall not be ashamed nor confounded, world without end." So that's what's going to happen. All these other nations going to be confounded and bewildered when they see America destroyed. But the children of God is going to be saved in that day. And we're going to be a world without end. So when you see the world in the Bible, it means cosmos, society, age. It's not talking about the globe, the earth, when you see the world. Like, that's why a lot of people get confused with John 3:16. They think John 3:16 is talking about the world. But you got to understand, it's written in, the New Testament is written in Greek. And different words in different languages have different meanings. So in Greek, the word world means society, age. As we see right here, it just tells you that Israel is going to be a world without end. So Israel is a world by itself. Alright? And I did a video explaining John 3:16 and the true understanding between, about John 3:16. So then let's get Ezekiel real quick. 27:27. It says, "Thy riches and thy fairs, thy merchants, thy merchandise, thy mariners, and thy pilots, thy chalkers, and thy occupiers of thy merchandise, and all thy men of war which are in thee, and all thy company which is in the midst of thee, shall fall into the midst of the sea in the day of thy ruins." So all these countries and all these people, everything that America got going on is going to crumble and it's going to be destroyed. All right. So let's read back on. It says, "The merchandise of the gold and silver and precious stones and pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and the scarlet and all thy wood and the manner of vessels and ivory and all the manner of vessels of the most precious wood and brass and iron and marble." And the cinnamon and talking about all the merchandise and the wealth of America. And the cinnamon and the odors and the ornaments and the frankincense and the wine and the oil and the fine flour and the wheat and the beast and the sheep and the horse and the chariots and the slaves and the souls of men and the fruits of and the fruit that thy soul lusts after are departed from thee, meaning all that's going to be taken away from America is departed from thee, and all the things which were was dainty and goodly and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more. The merchants of these things are made richer by her, shall stand far off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing. So these countries gonna see what happened to America, and they ain't gonna want no part of it. They gonna be like, look, damn, that's fucked up. We don't want no dealings with that. We're gonna try to do what we need to do. So we want to, suffer that. That's crazy. Uh, at last, the great city that was clothed with fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. For 1 hour, so great riches has come to naught. Meaning, in 1 hour, all this beautiful stuff that America possesses, their wealth and all that stuff is going to come to nothing. So all these you go downtown to the downtown area, you see these high rise buildings, the condominiums, these penthouses, all this nice stuff that they got going on. This a picture of all of that flattened to the ground, burnt, melted, destroyed. That's what's going to happen in that day. Um, where we at? And for in 1 hour, so great riches has come to naught, and every shipmaster, and all the company in ships and the sailors, as many as traders trade by sea, stood far off, and cried when she saw the smoke of her burning. So meaning these nations gonna see how America blow up, and they're gonna mourn. They're gonna be upset, just like how when we see tragedies on TV in certain areas, then we get upset and we want to send money and help them and all that stuff. But in this case, it ain't gonna be nobody to send the money to, because everybody gonna be dead in this case. So it says, and they cried and saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what a city is like unto this great city. Like, man, it will never be another America. Like, dang, this place, man, this place was wild. It will never be like it. It will never be another America. That's what they're gonna say after this place is over with. Um, they cast dust on their heads and cry and weep and wailing, saying, at last the great city wherein were made rich and that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness, and for 1 hour she is made desolate. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you. That's why God is going to destroy this place, because God is avenging us. It says, has avenged you on her. And the mighty angel took up a great stone like a millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence. No, 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 no. Maybe America gonna be destroyed gently and just, crumble slowly but surely. No. It says, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down and shall be found no more at all. That's what's gonna happen to this place. And if you got any love for your people, and understand the hell that we've been going through in this nation, you should want this place destroyed. You should have no love for this place. Because they kidnapped us, they stole us, and they brought us over here, forced us to work, and all that other stuff that took place since we've been over here. You should want this place to be destroyed. And it is going to be destroyed. Then it says, read it again. Boom, boom, boom. And the mighty angel took up a great stone like a millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down and shall be found no more at all. And the voice of the harps and the musicians and the pipes and the trumpets shall be heard no more, meaning ain't gonna be no music playing no more at all in thee, and no craftsman, no whatsoever should he be, shall be found any more in thee. And the sound of the millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. Meaning, if America gonna be destroyed, it's gonna be like just a little blip on the map, real quick. It's just gonna be bloop and it's gone. Then, in the light of the candle shall shine no more. Uh, in the voice of the bridegroom, and the bride shall be heard no more. Meaning, it's not gonna be no merry time, no good times, no like that song say, no happy jams, none of that stuff, right? Nothing to smile about in that day. Like Tupac say, you're gonna see some things that's gonna make it hard for you to smile. There's gonna be nothing to smile about in that day. It says, the light of the candle shall be shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee, for thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by sorcery were all nations deceived. Because America used their sorcery, their philosophies, to deceive these different nations, to get them to follow along, to get along on how they've been doing their thing. And it says, and they're not going to be deceived anymore. You know, they're not going to be able to deceive people anymore. Let's see, let's get one more real quick. Let's get Isaiah 47 and 8. And it says, therefore, hear now this, thou that art given into pleasures and dwell carelessly. Because that's how America was. They was given into their pleasures and they dwell carelessly because they thought that nothing can happen to them. That's why they're so prideful. What's that song, America the Great? You know, they so prideful in their way of being. It says, therefore, hear now this, thou that art given unto pleasures and dwell carelessly, that thou sayest in thy heart, I am, and none else is beside me. That's how America feels, that they are the greatest and no other nation can top America. You know, and it don't help that a lot of these other countries look at America as them being this great country that everybody want to come to America to try to live out the American dream. It says, therefore, now this that given unto pleasure, that dwelleth carelessly, that says in thy heart, I am none, I am and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, meaning America would never take a loss. That's how I was talking about. Like, we'd never take a loss. I would not sit as a widow, neither should I be no a loss of children, meaning like we ain't gonna never suffer no great casualty like that. You know what I'm saying? We'll never be destroyed like that. You know, so that's how America thinks. And it says, in in her was found the blood of the prophets, the Israelites, and the saints, you know, Israelites, and all that were slain upon the earth. So that's why this stuff is going to happen, because they killed God's people, they kidnapped God's people, and they destroyed God's people, and they continue to destroy God's people. That's what this is all about. So that's why I call this the big playback. That's why this is called the Black Messiah complex as we breaking down through this book of Revelation, because he's black, but he's coming back and he's black. All right, and like that song say, Papa don't take no mess, and he coming back to wreak havoc on this place for what they have done to us. We got to understand that, you know, because we serve a God of justice. What type of God would he be if he let all this stuff happen and nothing happened to this place and just everything just goes on, whatever, right? It don't work like that. We have to pay for what we did. That's why we here in America to this day and elsewhere. And now they're gonna have to pay for what they did. And that's just called justice, because we serve a God of justice, and His name is Yahweh, and His Son is called Yahweh Shai. So with that being said, that's part 9. You know, we got part 10 and part 11. That should wrap this whole book up. So I want to say shalom. You know, hopefully y'all got a little understanding and see that this place that we call America will be destroyed in the coming war, Third World War. We got that to look forward to, and we're going to be delivered. That's where our deliverance and our salvation comes from, during that time. So I want to say shalom and peace. Till next time.